Hello, my dear friend, and welcome back to Fluent English Journey. This is the channel where we don't just learn English, we also learn how to live better, think smarter, and grow stronger in every part of our lives. I'm really happy you're here today, because this episode is about something that can completely change the direction of your life. It's about being proactive. Now, that word might sound simple, but trust me, it's one of the most powerful habits you can ever build. So, let me ask you a question right at the beginning. Backhand index pointing right, are you the kind of person who waits for things to happen, or the kind of person who makes things happen? Think about it for a moment. When something goes wrong, what's your first reaction? Do you blame other people, bad luck, or the situation? Or do you stop and ask yourself, okay, what can I do about it? That small difference between waiting and acting is the heart of being proactive. And that's exactly what we'll explore together in today's episode. Why this matters. In our daily lives, it's easy to forget how much control we actually have. We wake up, check our phones, rush to school or work, and go through our routines. Sometimes it feels like life is just happening to us, not for us. Maybe your boss gives you extra work at the last minute. Maybe your teacher surprises you with a test. Maybe your plans fall apart unexpectedly. And in those moments, it's so tempting to say, well, what can I do? It's not my fault. But here's the truth. That's a reactive mindset. A reactive person focuses on what went wrong and blames things they can't control. A proactive person, on the other hand, looks at the same situation and says, it's not ideal, but what's my next move? That's the difference that changes everything. The real meaning of being proactive. Being proactive doesn't mean controlling everything around you. It's not about being bossy, pushy, or always in charge. It simply means taking responsibility for your own life. You can't control the weather, but you can control your attitude. You can't control other people's behavior, but you can control how you respond. You can't stop every challenge, but you can decide how you'll face it. That's what separates proactive people from everyone else. What we'll learn in this episode. In this episode, we'll go step by step. First, we'll understand what proactivity really means and how it's different from reactivity. Next, we'll explore the mindset, what proactive people think and believe about themselves and life. Then, we'll look at why so many people struggle to be proactive, even when they want to. Finally, I'll share some real-life examples and simple, practical tips you can start using today in your studies, your relationships, and your personal goals. A moment to reflect. Before we dive in, I want you to pause for a second. When was the last time you felt stuck? Maybe you wanted to do something new, but you waited for the right time. Maybe you hoped someone would push you or help you start. But what if that right time never comes? What if the person you've been waiting for is actually you? That's what being proactive is all about, not waiting for life to give you opportunities, but creating them yourself. You are the driver of your life. So, as you listen to this episode, remember one simple truth. You are not just a passenger in your own life, you are the driver. You decide where you want to go. You decide how fast you move. You decide which direction to take. And once you truly understand that, everything begins to change. Your confidence, your habits, your future. Let's begin. All right, my friend. Take a deep breath, relax, and open your mind. Because by the end of this episode, you'll not only understand what being proactive means, you'll also know exactly how to bring it into your daily life. This is Code Your English, and today we're coding a new mindset. A mindset of action, growth, and responsibility. Let's dive in. Understanding proactivity, simple and clear version. So, what does it really mean to be proactive? It means you don't just sit and wait for things to happen. You take action before problems appear. You try to create the results you want instead of waiting for them to come by chance. In simple words, proactive people don't just react to the world, they shape it. They focus on what they can do, what they can change, and what they can control. Proactive versus reactive. Now, let's compare this with the opposite attitude, being reactive. A reactive person waits for something to happen first, and then they respond to it. Their actions depend on what's going on around them, the situation, the weather, or other people's behavior. Let's look at a few examples to make this clearer. Example 1. The weather. Imagine it's Monday morning. You wake up and it's raining. A reactive person might say, "Ugh, it's raining again. Now my day is ruined." They let the rain decide their mood. But a proactive person thinks differently. They say, "Okay, it's raining. I'll take my umbrella and leave a bit earlier." See the difference? The situation is the same, but the attitude is completely different. The proactive person doesn't let the weather control their day. They control their response, and that changes everything. Example 2. Learning English. Let's take another example, studying or learning English. A reactive student might say, "I'll only study when I feel motivated," or "I'll practice speaking when I find someone to talk to." But a proactive student takes charge. They say, "I'll make a plan. I'll practice a few minutes every day, even when I don't feel like it." They don't wait for motivation. They build it through action. And that's why proactive learners improve faster. They don't wait for perfect conditions. They just start where they are, with what they have. Example 3. Relationships. You can also see this difference in relationships. Imagine you have a misunderstanding with a friend. A reactive person might think, "If they don't text me first, I'm not going to text them." They wait for the other person to act. But a proactive person thinks, "Maybe they're busy or upset. Let me reach out and clear things up." They take the first step. They try to fix the problem instead of waiting for it to fix itself. This kind of attitude doesn't just make you stronger. It makes your relationships healthier, your mind calmer, and your life smoother. What proactivity is not. Now, let's clear up a common misunderstanding. Being proactive does not mean being aggressive or trying to control everything. It doesn't mean you have to manage every detail or push others to do things your way. In fact, truly proactive people understand that some things are outside their control. They don't try to control other people's opinions, emotions, or decisions. Instead, they focus on what is within their power. Their own thoughts, their own choices, and their own actions. Example 4. Teamwork. Let's imagine one more situation. Your team at work is preparing for a big presentation, but one of your teammates isn't doing their part. A reactive person might complain and get frustrated. This always happens. People are so lazy. But a proactive person thinks differently. They ask, "What can I do to help the team succeed anyway?" Maybe they organize a short meeting or help clarify tasks so everyone knows what to do. Instead of wasting energy blaming others, they use their energy to make things better. Emotional control, the heart of proactivity. Proactivity is also about emotional control. When you're proactive, you understand that your emotions don't have to control you. For example, if someone criticizes you, you have two options. You can react immediately, maybe get angry or defensive. Or you can pause, take a breath, and choose your response carefully. That small pause right between what happens to you and how you respond. That's where proactivity lives. Inside that pause lies your power. The key difference. Life gives us all kinds of situations every single day. Traffic jams, delays, arguments, surprises. You can't control most of them, but you can control how you respond. That's the key difference between a reactive life and a proactive life. Reactive people let circumstances decide their happiness. Proactive people decide it for themselves. The good news. And here's the best part. Proactive people aren't born that way. It's not a talent, it's a skill. Something you can learn, practice, and get better at. It all starts with awareness. When you notice how often you let outside events decide your mood or behavior, you can start to change that pattern. It's like programming your own mindset. And since this podcast is called Code Your English, you could say that being proactive is like coding your life with better instructions. You're telling your brain, backhand index pointing right, don't wait for perfect moments, create them. Backhand index pointing right, don't react to everything, choose wisely. That's what being proactive truly means. The mindset behind proactivity, simple and expanded version. So when you hear the word proactive, I want you to think of it as a mindset of choice. It's about choosing responsibility instead of excuses, action instead of waiting, and growth instead of comfort. Being proactive isn't about being perfect, and it's not about controlling every little thing in life. It's about doing your best with what you have right where you are right now. As we move forward in this episode, I want you to keep asking yourself two simple questions. In what areas of my life am I being reactive? And how can I start being more proactive there? Because awareness is the first step toward change. Once you can see the difference between reacting and taking initiative, you can start living that difference one small, intentional action at a time, where proactivity really begins. Now that we understand what being proactive means in action, let's go a little deeper into the mindset behind it. Because proactivity doesn't start with what you do, it starts with how you think. Every action begins with a thought. And the real difference between a proactive person and a reactive person is found right there in how they think about life, responsibility, and control. Let's start with a simple but powerful truth. Backhand index pointing right, you can't control everything that happens to you, but you can control how you respond to it. You might have heard that idea before, but it's one of the most important lessons you can ever learn. Two ways of thinking. A reactive mindset believes things like, I can't help it. It's not my fault. Things just happen to me. People with this mindset often feel powerless. When something goes wrong, they blame the weather, other people, or bad luck. They wait for life to get easier instead of learning to get stronger. On the other hand, a proactive mindset says, I can choose my response. I may not control everything around me, but I can control myself. This is the mindset of growth, responsibility, and confidence. People who think this way understand that life isn't always fair, and that's okay. Because no matter what happens, they still get to decide how to act, how to feel, and what to focus on. And that's where their true power lies. The space between event and reaction. This idea was beautifully explained by Stephen Covey in his famous book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He said that between what happens to us and how we respond, there is a space, and in that space lies our freedom to choose. Take a moment to think about that. Something happens, a problem, an argument, a disappointment. And right before you react, there's always a small space, just a few seconds, between the event and your reaction. That tiny space is where your power lives. That's where you can pause, breathe, and choose how you want to respond. That's the moment where a proactive life begins. Example: stuck in traffic. Let's make this more real with a simple example. Imagine you're stuck in traffic on the way to an important meeting. A reactive person might start shouting at other drivers, getting angry, honking, and stressing about being late. They let frustration take over their emotions. But a proactive person uses that little space to think. Okay, I can't change the traffic, but I can call ahead and let them know I'll be late. Or I can use this time to breathe, relax, and maybe listen to something positive. The situation is exactly the same cars, the same delay. But the experience is completely different. Because the mindset is different. Taking control back. When you start thinking proactively, you begin to notice how often your emotions and reactions depend on things you can't control. Other people's opinions, small inconveniences, or unexpected events. A reactive person lets these things control their mood and their day. A proactive person takes that control back. They still feel emotions like anger, sadness, or frustration. But they don't let those emotions decide their next move. They pause. They choose. They act intentionally. And that's what emotional strength really is. The circle of concern versus the circle of influence. Stephen Covey also explained this mindset using 2 simple circles. He called them the circle of concern and the circle of influence. Try to imagine them. The bigger circle is the circle of concern. It includes everything you care about: world problems, politics, the past, other people's behavior, or things you wish you could change but can't. Inside that, there's a smaller circle, the circle of influence. This one includes everything you can actually do something about: your habits, your reactions, your choices, your mindset. Reactive people spend most of their time and energy worrying about the big outer circle, things they can't really control. As a result, they feel stressed, frustrated, and powerless. Proactive people focus on the smaller inner circle, the things they can influence right now. And here's the interesting part. When you focus on what you can control, that inner circle actually grows. Your influence expands. You start having more confidence, more clarity, and more peace of mind. The power of a proactive mindset, simplified and expanded. Your habits, your actions, your words, your reactions, these are all part of your circle of influence. Reactive people spend most of their time and energy worrying about things in the outer circle, the things they can't control. But proactive people focus on the inner circle, the things they can do something about. And here's the magical part. When you focus on your circle of influence, it starts to grow. You become stronger, calmer, and more capable of handling life. Example, learning English. Let's look at a simple example. Imagine you want to improve your English, but you keep saying things like, I don't have time. My environment isn't good for learning. That's a reactive way of thinking. It focuses on what you can't control. But a proactive mindset says, okay, maybe I don't have much time, but I can still listen to podcasts while I travel. I can still learn a few new words every day. That small shift from I can't to I can changes everything. What proactivity is really about. Having a proactive mindset doesn't mean ignoring reality or pretending everything is perfect. It's not about fake positivity or denying problems. It's about responsibility, taking ownership of your choices, your emotions, and your growth. You stop waiting for luck, motivation, or perfect timing. Instead, you start creating small, meaningful actions that move you forward. Because success isn't built by chance, it's built by consistency, self-discipline, and mindset. A moment of reflection. Now, here's something to think about. When was the last time you blamed circumstances instead of taking action? Maybe you told yourself you couldn't start because the situation wasn't right. Maybe you were too tired, too busy, or not ready yet. We all do that sometimes, and that's okay. But what if, instead of waiting for things to change, you decided to take the first step anyway? That's what proactive people do. They don't wait for life to become easy. They move even when it's difficult. Proactivity changes how you see the world. When you start building this mindset, everything begins to shift. You stop seeing yourself as a victim of your environment and start feeling like the designer of your life. You realize that your thoughts, your words, and your actions create your results. You also start to feel more peaceful because you no longer waste energy worrying about things you can't control. When you focus on what you can do, life feels lighter, simpler, and clearer. The power of pause. So next time something doesn't go your way, maybe you fail a test, lose an opportunity, or face criticism. Pause for a moment. Ask yourself, what's inside my control right now? What can I do next? That's how a proactive person thinks. It's not about being perfect. It's about being intentional. Every challenge becomes a lesson. Every problem becomes a possibility. And every small decision becomes a chance to take control of your story. That's the real power of being proactive. It begins in your mind, and it transforms everything that follows. Why many people struggle to be proactive. Now that we understand what proactivity really means and how powerful it can be, you might be wondering, if it's so helpful, why don't more people live this way? That's what we'll explore next. Because even though everyone wants to be proactive, many people find it hard to do in daily life. And there are a few important reasons for that: mental habits, emotions, fear, and comfort. Let's break those down one by one. Why many people struggle to be proactive, simplified, and expanded. So now that we've talked about what proactivity means and the mindset behind it, let's be honest for a moment. If being proactive is so powerful and helpful, why don't more people do it? Why is it so hard to take action, even when we know it's good for us? The truth is, everyone struggles with this at some point. We all have moments when we wait too long, hesitate too much, or let opportunities pass us by. And that's okay. The goal here isn't to feel guilty about it. The goal is to understand why it happens, so we can move forward with more awareness, courage, and self-compassion. 1. Fear of failure. One of the biggest barriers to being proactive is the fear of failure. We often hold ourselves back because we're afraid of doing something wrong or not doing it perfectly. Think about it. How many times have you told yourself, "What if it doesn't work? What if I fail?" That tiny question, "what if?" can stop you before you even start. But here's something to remember. Proactive people fail too. The difference is that they don't see failure as the end. They see it as part of the journey. Every mistake teaches them something new. Every attempt, even a failed one, moves them closer to success. They understand that failure is feedback, not defeat. A personal story. Let me share a small personal story. A few years ago, I wanted to start a creative project, something meaningful, something that truly excited me. I had the idea. I had the plan. But I kept waiting. I told myself things like, "I'll start when I feel ready. I just need to think about it a little more." Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months. Then one day, I saw someone else launch a similar project, and they became quite successful. I wasn't angry at their success. I was frustrated with myself because I realized something painful but true. I could have done it too if only I had acted earlier. That experience taught me a powerful lesson. Waiting for the perfect moment often means missing the real one. The myth of the perfect moment. Maybe you felt the same. Have you ever told yourself, "I'll start when I'm ready," but that ready day never came? We wait for the right time, the right mood, or the right situation. But the truth is there's no perfect moment. The perfect moment is the one you choose to begin. Being proactive doesn't mean you're never afraid. It means you act despite the fear. You take the first step even when your hands are shaking. 2. Perfectionism. Another big reason people struggle to be proactive is perfectionism. We tell ourselves that everything has to be perfect before we start. The perfect plan, the perfect skills, the perfect confidence. But perfectionism is a trap. It creates endless waiting, endless planning, and very little doing. Perfectionism whispers, "You're not ready yet." And the more you listen, the further you move from your goal. Proactive people know that progress is more important than perfection. They focus on starting small, learning as they go, and improving over time. They know that it's better to take one imperfect step than to take none at all. 3. Lack of confidence. Another reason people struggle to take initiative is a lack of confidence. Many people don't act because they don't truly believe in themselves. They think, "I'm not good enough. Other people are smarter, stronger, or more talented than me." But here's the truth. Confidence doesn't come before action, it comes from action. Every time you do something small, even if it scares you, you build a little more trust in yourself. It's like training a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. And that same muscle is what makes proactivity grow. Action builds confidence, and confidence inspires more action. It's a powerful cycle. 4. Waiting for motivation. And finally, there's a quiet but common barrier: waiting for motivation. So many people say, "I'll do it when I feel motivated." But motivation doesn't always show up first. In fact, it's usually the result of action, not the cause of it. When you take even one small step, write one sentence, go for one short walk, study for 5 minutes, you start to feel momentum. And that momentum creates motivation. So if you ever catch yourself waiting to feel ready, remember this: you don't need to be motivated to start. You just need to start to become motivated. The power of taking initiative simplified and expanded. You start doing something, and then you begin to feel motivated. It's like lighting a fire. You don't wait for warmth to start the flame. You start the flame to create warmth. Proactive people understand this. They don't wait to feel inspired. They begin, and the inspiration follows. Stepping into discomfort. Sometimes, the struggle isn't just mental, it's emotional. We've all had moments when life feels too big, too uncertain, or too heavy. Taking action feels risky, and staying in your comfort zone feels safer. And that's normal. The comfort zone feels familiar, calm, and predictable. But here's the truth: comfort zones don't help us grow. Being proactive often means stepping into discomfort. Not because it's easy, but because it's necessary for growth. Growth and comfort can't live in the same space. One always pushes the other out. The influence of your environment. It's also worth remembering that our environment shapes our mindset. If you've grown up around people who constantly complain, blame others, or wait for someone else to fix things, you might have learned to think and react the same way without even realizing it. Being proactive often means breaking that pattern, challenging old beliefs, and choosing to think differently. That's not easy, but awareness is the first step. When you notice yourself slipping into reactive habits, like waiting, blaming, or hesitating, that awareness alone is powerful. It means you're already starting to change. Everyone struggles, even proactive people. And remember this: even the most proactive people have moments of fear, doubt, and hesitation. The difference is, they don't stay stuck there. They remind themselves that they always have a choice: to move, to act, to try again. You can do the same. You don't need to become perfectly proactive overnight. You just need to take small, consistent steps toward taking more responsibility for your actions and your future. So, if you've been waiting to start something, a new project, a fitness goal, or maybe improving your English, ask yourself honestly, what am I really waiting for? Is it the right time or the right mindset? Because sometimes, the only thing standing between where you are and where you want to be is that one small step you keep delaying. Awareness is growth. Awareness isn't about guilt, it's about growth. Recognizing your fears, your perfectionism, or your waiting habits doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. And once you can see those patterns clearly, you can start changing them. Little by little, choice by choice. That's how you build a life that's not just reactive, but truly proactive. A life where you're not waiting for things to happen, but creating them yourself. the power of taking initiative. Now that we understand why people struggle to be proactive, let's talk about what happens when you finally decide to take action. When you stop waiting and start doing. This is where the real magic begins. Because being proactive isn't about big, dramatic moves. It's about taking initiative even in small, everyday ways. And the truth is, those small actions, the ones that seem almost too simple, are often the ones that create the biggest results over time. Taking initiative means you don't wait for permission, perfect timing, or someone else to go first. You decide to act, even if it's uncomfortable, even if you don't have everything figured out. It's that quiet inner voice that says, "I'll try," instead of, "maybe later." And here's the beautiful part. When you start taking initiative, your life slowly begins to change. Not all at once, but step by step, moment by moment. A simple example. Imagine you want to learn English fluently. You keep telling yourself you'll start when you have more free time, or when you feel ready. Weeks go by, then months, and you still haven't started. But one day, you decide to take initiative. You listen to a short podcast, read a few sentences, or practice speaking for just 10 minutes a day. At first, it feels small, maybe even pointless. The power of taking initiative continued. But if you keep doing it every single day, one day you'll look back and realize how far you've come. That's the quiet power of initiative. It's not about doing everything. It's about doing something. The same applies to every area of life. Starting a side project, applying for a job, or building a new friendship. Let's say you've always wanted to start a small online business, but you keep waiting to feel ready. You tell yourself, "I need more experience," or "I'll start when things calm down." But that perfect time never really arrives. Then one day, you take the first step. Maybe you do a little research, sketch out a simple plan, or talk to someone who's done it before. And suddenly, things start to move. You begin to see opportunities you never noticed before. You realize that the hardest part wasn't the work itself. It was starting. Small steps, big shifts. Taking initiative doesn't always mean taking big leaps. Sometimes, it's as simple as sending a message to reconnect with a friend you haven't spoken to in years, or volunteering to help with a small project at work, or choosing to wake up 10 minutes earlier to plan your day. Each of these small decisions builds momentum. And momentum is what keeps you moving when motivation fades. Because motivation comes and goes. But momentum, that steady forward movement, turns small efforts into big results. Start with what you have. A proactive person understands this deeply. They don't wait for the perfect plan. They start with what they have. Maybe they don't know all the answers yet, but they know that action brings clarity. Every time you act, you learn something new. Every step, even a small one, gives you feedback, builds your confidence, and makes the next step easier. There's a saying I love. You don't have to see the whole staircase. Just take the first step. That's exactly what taking initiative is about. You might not know where the path will lead, and that's okay. You don't need to know everything to begin. You just need to begin. Over time, those steps start to connect, and what once felt impossible starts to feel natural. Doing something meaningful, not everything. Let's clear up a common misunderstanding. Being proactive and taking initiative doesn't mean doing everything. It's not about overloading yourself or trying to control every situation. In fact, proactive people are usually very smart about their energy. They focus on doing something meaningful, not everything possible. They understand that progress is about direction, not speed. You don't have to move fast. You just have to keep moving in the right direction. For example, if your goal is to improve your English, you don't need to study 5 hours a day. Even 15 minutes of focused practice can make a real difference if you do it consistently. If you want to build better relationships, you don't need to meet everyone. Just reach out to one person and make that connection meaningful. Small, thoughtful actions done regularly are much more powerful than rare, perfect actions done occasionally. Initiative builds confidence. And here's another truth: taking initiative builds confidence. When you act, even in small ways, you start proving to yourself that you're capable. You stop seeing yourself as someone who just reacts to life and start seeing yourself as someone who shapes it. That's an incredible feeling. You begin to trust your own decisions, and that trust gives you the courage to do even more. Think of any successful person you admire, in business, education, art, or life. None of them got where they are by waiting for things to happen. They took initiative. They started when things were uncertain, when they didn't have all the answers. They failed, learned, and kept going. Their success wasn't built in one big moment. It was built through many small, consistent actions. How can you be more proactive? So, let me ask you something. What's one small step you've been thinking about taking but haven't yet? Maybe it's starting a course, sending an important email, or simply waking up a little earlier to work on your goals. What's stopping you from doing it today? Not perfectly, just starting. Because once you take that first step, something shifts inside you. You feel a little stronger, a little braver, and a lot more in control of your life. Remember this. Being proactive doesn't mean doing everything. It means doing something that moves you forward. Even if it's small, it still counts. Progress is never about perfection. It's about persistence. The people who succeed aren't always the fastest, the smartest, or the most talented. They're the ones who keep showing up, who take initiative again and again, even when it's hard. So as you think about your own life, ask yourself, where can I take initiative today? It doesn't have to be big. Just one small, intentional action. Because that's how every great change begins. Not with a giant leap, but with a single, brave step in the right direction. Now that we understand what proactivity means and why it matters, let's talk about something even more important: how you can actually become more proactive in your daily life. Being proactive is not something that happens overnight. It's not a personality trait you're born with. It's a mindset, a collection of small habits and choices that you build little by little over time. And the good news? Anyone can learn it. You don't need to be naturally confident, super organized, or incredibly disciplined. You just need to start practicing simple habits that give you more control over your actions, reactions, and decisions. So, let's go step by step through some practical, easy to understand ways you can start becoming more proactive starting today. Tip number 1. Think ahead. Proactive people don't just live in the moment. They also think about what might happen next. Now, this doesn't mean you have to worry about the future or try to predict every possible outcome. It simply means being one step ahead. For example, if you have an important meeting tomorrow, you prepare your notes tonight. If you know exams are coming soon, you start studying a little earlier. Instead of waiting until the last night, thinking ahead helps you prevent problems before they happen. It's like checking the weather before you go outside. If there's a chance of rain, you bring an umbrella. That one small action saves you time, energy, and stress later. When you train your mind to look forward, you start to see patterns. You realize that many of the problems we face can actually be avoided just by planning a little earlier. Thinking ahead doesn't require a big, detailed plan. It starts with small, mindful moments of preparation. Ask yourself, what can I do now to make tomorrow a little easier? That question alone can change everything. Tip number 2. Take responsibility. This is one of the most powerful steps toward becoming truly proactive. Taking responsibility means accepting that you're in charge of your choices, your reactions, and your mindset. It's easy to blame others, your boss, your teacher, your friends, or even bad luck when things don't go the way you hoped. But every time you blame, you give away your power. You hand control of your happiness to someone else. That's what reactive people do. They let life decide for them. Proactive people, on the other hand, take ownership of their lives. They say, this situation isn't ideal, but what can I do about it? They focus on solutions instead of complaints. And that one shift from blaming to taking responsibility is the foundation of personal growth. Because when you take responsibility, you take your power back. Tip number 3. Focus on what you can control. Proactive people do the opposite of what most people do. Instead of worrying about what's out of their hands, they focus on what they can control. When something goes wrong, they don't just complain or give up. They ask themselves, what can I learn from this? Or, what can I do differently next time? Instead of saying, it's not my fault, they say, it's my opportunity to grow. Taking responsibility doesn't mean trying to control everything, and it doesn't mean feeling guilty when you make mistakes. It simply means owning your part and using every experience as a chance to improve. Once you stop waiting for others to fix your problems, you begin to realize how much power you truly have to change your own life. Tip number 4. Make small plans. A lot of people think being proactive means creating big, detailed plans for the whole year. But the truth is that's not always necessary. In fact, big plans often make people feel overwhelmed or anxious. The secret is to start small. Plan your day, your week, or even just your next few hours. For example, you could write down 3 important things you want to do today. Or, if you're learning English, decide that you'll listen to 1 short podcast, review 5 new words, and practice speaking for 10 minutes. Small, realistic plans build consistency. They give you confidence because you can see progress every day. And the best part? Small plans are flexible. If something changes, you can easily adjust. Over time, these small steps lead to big results. Remember, success doesn't come from one giant leap. It comes from many small steps, taken consistently in the right direction. Tip number 5, solve problems early. Many people delay action because they hope small problems will simply disappear. But most of the time, small problems grow bigger when you ignore them. Being proactive means facing issues early, before they turn into crises. Imagine you notice a small misunderstanding with a friend. You could talk about it early, instead of waiting until it becomes a serious argument. Or maybe you're falling behind on a project. You could ask for help now, instead of waiting until the deadline. Solving problems early saves energy and reduces stress. It also builds trust, because people see you as someone who takes initiative, someone who cares about solutions, not excuses. Of course, facing problems can be uncomfortable, but avoiding them is always harder in the long run. So when something feels wrong, act early. Ask questions. Fix small mistakes. Find simple ways to handle things before they get out of control. Tip number 6, stay positive and take action. This might sound simple, but it's one of the hardest and most important parts of being proactive. A positive mindset doesn't mean pretending life is easy. It means believing that you can handle whatever comes your way. When things go wrong, a reactive person says, "Why does this always happen to me?" But a proactive person says, "Okay, this is hard, but I can do something about it." That attitude changes everything. It gives you energy. It gives you power. Because real change doesn't happen through thinking or planning alone. It happens through action. Even if you're unsure, take a small step. Send that message. Start that lesson. Begin that task. The more you act, the more confident and capable you become. Staying positive helps you see possibilities instead of problems. And taking action turns those possibilities into reality. Putting it all together. Remember, being proactive is not about doing more. It's about doing what matters. It's about thinking ahead, taking responsibility, making small but meaningful plans, solving problems early, and staying positive, even when life feels uncertain. You don't have to change everything overnight. You just have to take one small, intentional step each day. Each time you do, you'll feel more in control of your life, more confident in your abilities, and more capable of shaping your own future. So ask yourself, which of these 5 tips can you start practicing today? Maybe it's thinking ahead for tomorrow's tasks. Maybe it's finally taking responsibility for something you've been avoiding. Whatever it is, start now. Because being proactive doesn't begin with perfect plans. It begins with one simple, brave decision to act. The emotional benefits of being proactive. When we talk about being proactive, we often focus on action, on planning, problem solving, and taking responsibility. But there's another side to proactivity that's just as powerful, and maybe even more important, the emotional side. When you start living proactively, you don't just become more productive, you also become calmer, more confident, and more at peace with yourself. You start to feel a quiet strength inside, the kind that says, whatever happens, I can handle it. And that feeling is one of the greatest emotional gifts of being proactive, building self-trust. Every time you take initiative, even in small ways, you build trust in yourself. You start to believe that your actions matter, that you can rely on your own choices. Think about it. When you make a promise to yourself and keep it, you prove that your word has value. Maybe you told yourself you'd wake up early to study English for just 10 minutes, and you did. Maybe you finally sent that job application instead of waiting for the right time. Those small moments build a stronger relationship between you and you. Self-trust doesn't grow from thinking about change. It grows from doing something and keeping your promises to yourself. Over time, that trust becomes the foundation of your confidence. You stop doubting yourself so much because you've seen what you're capable of when you take action. Growing real confidence. Confidence isn't about thinking you'll never fail. It's about knowing that even if you do fail, you'll figure it out. Reactive people often wait for confidence before they start. They think, I'll do it when I feel ready. But proactive people know the truth. Confidence comes after taking action, not before. Each time you take initiative, even when you're unsure, you send a message to your brain that says, I can handle this. Each action adds another piece to your confidence puzzle. And over time, you start to feel more capable in every part of your life. At work, in relationships, or while learning something new. You realize that you don't need perfect timing or perfect conditions. You just need the courage to begin. Finding peace of mind. One of the quietest, yet most powerful, results of being proactive is peace of mind. When you act, plan, and prepare, you remove so much unnecessary worry. Most anxiety comes from thinking about things we can't control. Other people's opinions, the weather, the economy, or luck. But when you're proactive, your focus shifts from what you can't control to what you can. And that simple shift brings calm. For example, instead of stressing about exam results, a proactive student focuses on studying well, instead of worrying about whether people will like them. A proactive person focuses on being kind and genuine. You stop wasting emotional energy on things outside your control, and that creates space. Space for peace, clarity, and balance. I remember a time when I was struggling with a personal project, something I had wanted to start for months, but kept postponing because I was afraid it wouldn't be perfect. The emotional magic of action. I kept telling myself, I'll start when I have more time, or I'll do it when I feel more ready. Of course, that ready day never came. One morning, I just got tired of feeling stuck. So I opened my laptop and started. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. That small act of taking initiative instead of waiting gave me a rush of pride and relief. It wasn't just about completing something. It was about freeing myself from hesitation. I realized that action is powerful, not just because of what it achieves, but because of how it makes you feel inside. That day, I didn't just make progress on my project. I regained my confidence. That's the emotional magic of being proactive. It gives you a sense of freedom. Freedom from constant doubt, fear, and waiting. You start to realize that your emotions aren't controlling you. You're guiding them. Even when life throws surprises your way, you stay grounded because you know how to respond. You become calmer in chaos and stronger in uncertainty. That emotional balance changes the way you move through the world. You begin to feel lighter, more centered, and more in charge of your own happiness. The power of focus. Now, I want you to think about this. What would your life feel like if you focused only on what you could control? What if, instead of worrying about everything that could go wrong, you spent your energy on what you can actually do? Imagine how much more peaceful and focused you'd feel. Imagine how much mental space you'd free up for creativity, growth, and joy. When you practice proactivity, you start to experience more emotional stability. You stop reacting to every little problem like it's a crisis. You learn to pause, breathe, and respond calmly. That's because proactive people develop emotional strength through repeated action. Each small decision to act trains your brain to stay calm under pressure. And that's something no one can take away from you. So the next time you feel anxious, uncertain, or stuck, remember this. The first step toward peace is action. You don't have to solve everything at once. Just do the next right thing, the one that's within your control. Each time you do, you'll feel a little more confident, a little more peaceful, and a lot more free. That's what emotional growth through proactivity looks like. Less fear, more calm. Less waiting, more doing. Less doubt, more self-trust. The more you practice this, the stronger your emotional foundation becomes. And soon, you'll find that being proactive isn't just something you do. It's part of who you are. Daily habits of proactive people. If you really want to understand what it means to live proactively, you have to look at it in action. Not in big, dramatic moments, but in the small habits that shape your day. Because being proactive isn't something you do once in a while, when life gets hard. It's something you practice every day, in simple, ordinary moments. When you plan your time, make decisions, or choose how to respond to challenges. Proactive people don't just talk about responsibility. They live it. They don't wait for motivation to appear. They build habits that create motivation naturally. Daily habits of proactive people. So, let's look at some daily habits that proactive people use to stay focused, calm, and in control. Habits you can start building today. 1. Plan your day instead of reacting to it. Most people wake up, check their phones, and immediately start reacting to messages, notifications, emails, or other people's problems. When you start your day that way, You're already letting the world decide your priorities. Proactive people do the opposite. They plan their day before it starts. It doesn't have to be complicated. Even 5 minutes of quiet planning can make a huge difference. Ask yourself, what are the 3 most important things I need to do today? Then write them down. That small act of planning helps you take the driver's seat of your day, instead of being a passenger. When you know your goals, you make better decisions, and you feel less stressed, because you're leading your day with intention, not reaction. 2. Set goals and review them weekly. Proactive people don't just think about today. They think about where they want to be next month or next year. Having clear goals gives direction to your energy and actions. For example, if your goal is to improve your English, you might decide to listen to 1 podcast a day, write short reflections, or speak with a partner 3 times a week. The key isn't just setting goals, it's reviewing them. Every week, take a few minutes to ask yourself, what went well? What didn't? What can I improve? This simple reflection keeps you aware and motivated. It's like checking a map during a long journey. You make sure you're still heading in the right direction. Goals give you clarity. Regular reviews give you progress. That's how proactive people stay consistent and confident, even when things get busy. 3. Say no to distractions. In today's world, this one is tough. Our phones, social media, and endless notifications make it harder than ever to focus. But proactive people understand that every yes to a distraction is a no to something important. They learn to protect their time and attention. Sometimes that means turning off your phone for an hour, closing unnecessary tabs, or setting boundaries with people who constantly interrupt your focus. It might feel uncomfortable at first, but it's essential. You can't move forward if you're always being pulled in different directions. Being proactive means knowing your priorities and having the courage to say no when something doesn't align with them. It's not about being rude. It's about taking responsibility for where your focus and energy go. 4. Take responsibility for your emotions and choices. This one is deeper, and it's what truly separates proactive people from reactive ones. Life is full of stressful moments. Maybe someone criticizes you. Maybe you face rejection. Or maybe things just don't go your way. Reactive people let their emotions control their actions. They get angry, upset, or give up. Proactive people understand that emotions are real, but they don't have to rule their behavior. They pause, breathe, and respond instead of reacting. For example, if someone says something rude, a proactive person doesn't immediately argue. They might think, is it really worth my energy? Or how can I respond calmly? Taking responsibility for your emotions doesn't mean ignoring them. It means managing them wisely. It's emotional maturity, the ability to choose your reaction, instead of letting your emotions choose it for you. The 5th habit, act even when you don't feel like it. Proactive people understand that motivation isn't a feeling that magically appears. It's something you create through action. There will be days when you feel lazy, tired, or discouraged. We all have them. But the secret to consistency is not waiting for the perfect mood. It's doing small things even when you don't feel ready. You might tell yourself, I'll just start for 5 minutes. And once you begin, your energy usually follows. This habit of starting, even with small steps, builds discipline and keeps your momentum alive. Remember, perfection is not the goal. Progress is. Each small step you take builds a proactive mindset. And each time you act despite excuses, you strengthen your self-control. A small challenge. Now, here's a little challenge for you this week. Try to adopt just one proactive habit. Maybe you'll plan your day before checking your phone. Maybe you'll review your weekly goals every Sunday. Or maybe you'll say no to one distraction that usually steals your time. Choose something simple and doable. The goal isn't to change your whole routine overnight, but to take one conscious step toward living more intentionally. Being proactive isn't about being busy all the time. It's about being in charge of your time, your focus, and your emotions. It's about realizing that life doesn't just happen to you. It happens through you, based on the choices you make. So, as you move through this week, remember to take the driver's seat of your own life. Plan ahead. Protect your focus. Manage your emotions. And act with purpose. Because once you start building these habits, you'll notice something amazing. You'll feel calmer, more confident, and more capable of handling whatever life brings your way. So, what's your first proactive habit going to be? Common misconceptions and balance. When people first hear the word proactive, they often imagine someone who's always busy, constantly planning, taking charge, and doing something every minute of the day. But here's the truth. Being proactive is not about doing more. It's about doing what matters. It's not about working nonstop or trying to control everything and everyone around you. It's about finding a healthy balance, knowing when to take action and when to pause, when to push forward and when to rest. True proactivity isn't about speed or control. It's about wisdom and balance. Let's start by clearing up a common misconception. Many people think proactive individuals are workaholics, people who can't relax, or who always need to be in charge. But that's not what proactivity means at all. A proactive person doesn't act out of stress or fear. They act out of intention. They don't feel the need to do everything. They focus on what's truly important. For example, a proactive student doesn't study every single hour. They study smartly and consistently. And they also make time to rest. A proactive employee doesn't try to control their team. They communicate, delegate, and trust others. Being proactive is about making thoughtful choices. Sometimes, the most proactive thing you can do is stop, rest, and recharge your energy so you can perform better later. The balance of true proactivity. True proactivity means finding a rhythm that works for you. Not too fast, not too slow. It's like driving a car. If you keep pressing the accelerator without ever slowing down, you'll eventually burn out. But If you're too afraid to move, you'll never reach your destination. The balance of true proactivity. A proactive mindset is like being a skilled driver. You know when to speed up and when to slow down. You don't let life push you around, but you also don't push yourself to the edge. You understand that rest is not laziness. It's part of the process. Proactive people know that their energy, focus, and motivation need care, just like a battery needs charging. Another common misunderstanding is that being proactive means trying to control everything. Every event, every person, every outcome. But the truth is, no one can control everything. Life is unpredictable. Things will go wrong. People will disappoint you. Plans will change. Proactive people don't waste time fighting what they can't control. They focus on what they can. That's what makes them both effective and peaceful. They prepare for the unexpected, adapt quickly, and stay flexible. They know that being proactive isn't about being rigid. It's about being ready. You might not be able to control the wind, but you can always adjust your sails. Proactive people also plan, not just for productivity, but for recovery. They understand that rest, reflection, and joy are not rewards. They're necessities. You can't give your best if you're exhausted or mentally drained. So proactive people schedule rest just like any other priority. They take short breaks during work, get enough sleep, and spend time doing things that refresh their mind. Reading, walking, or sharing moments with loved ones. They know that creativity and clarity often arrive during quiet moments, not only during busy ones. It's all about maintaining your energy, not just using it. The cultural side of proactivity. There's also a fascinating cultural side to this discussion. Different societies express initiative and responsibility in unique ways. In many Western cultures, such as the United States or the UK, being proactive is often linked to independence and self-leadership. People are encouraged to take initiative, speak up, and make things happen. In many Eastern cultures, such as Japan or Korea, proactivity is also valued, but it's expressed through harmony, preparation, and collective responsibility. Instead of standing out, people focus on contributing to the group's success. And in many developing countries, taking initiative can sometimes feel risky because people fear making mistakes or being judged. But no matter where you're from, the essence of proactivity is the same. It's about taking responsibility for your choices and shaping your future instead of waiting for others to shape it for you. That's why balance is key, because proactivity looks different for every person and every culture. For one person, it might mean setting boundaries and learning to say no. For another, it might mean speaking up with confidence or starting a new project without waiting for permission. What matters most isn't how much you do, but why you do it. When your actions come from awareness and purpose, you are being proactive. Even if what you choose to do is rest, reflect, or simply say, "I'll handle this calmly." Think about this for a moment. Are you taking control of your life? Or are you trying to control everything in it? There's a big difference. Taking control means leading yourself wisely, planning, acting, and taking responsibility for your choices. Trying to control everything means fighting reality, forcing things that aren't meant to be forced, and exhausting yourself in the process. One brings peace, the other brings stress. So the next time you hear the word proactive, remember, it's not about running faster, doing more, or being perfect. It's about living intentionally, with clarity, calm, and purpose. The beauty of being proactive. Being proactive means living intentionally, staying balanced, and focusing on what truly matters. It's about understanding that rest is part of growth, that flexibility is strength, and that your job isn't to control the world, it's to manage your choices within it. And maybe that's the most beautiful thing about being proactive. It teaches you how to act with purpose and rest with peace. It reminds you that the most powerful people are not the ones who do everything, but the ones who know when to move, when to pause, and how to stay calm through both. As we come to the end of this reflection, take a moment to think about everything we've explored about proactivity. We've seen that being proactive is much more than just taking action or staying busy. It's a mindset, a way of thinking that shapes how you approach life. It's about choosing to focus on what you can control instead of what you can't. It's about making thoughtful decisions, taking responsibility, and responding to challenges with calmness and intention, not fear or habit. Being proactive is also a practice, something you build little by little, through small daily actions and consistent effort. And more than that, it's a way of living, a way of guiding your life instead of simply reacting to it. When you live proactively, you give yourself the power to shape your experiences, manage your emotions, and move closer to the goals that truly matter to you. One of the most important lessons about proactivity is that it's not about perfection. It's not about doing everything at once or having a perfect plan. It's not about never making mistakes. Proactive people understand that progress doesn't come from waiting for the right moment. It comes from consistent, meaningful action. They know that life will always be uncertain. There will always be something unexpected, something that doesn't go as planned. But instead of waiting for perfect conditions, they take the first step anyway. They act even when they feel nervous or unsure. They start small, and with each step, they grow more confident and clear. That's what makes proactive people stand out. They don't wait for life to change. They create the change themselves. Think about your own life for a moment. How many times have you delayed something because you didn't feel ready? Maybe it was learning a new skill, sending a message to someone, or working on a dream you've had for a long time. You told yourself you would start when you had more time, more confidence, or when things felt easier. But the truth is that perfect moment rarely ever comes. When you wait, you give your power away to fear, to doubt, to your circumstances. But when you take even one small step forward, you take your power back. You remind yourself that action creates clarity, not the other way around. Being proactive means saying, I might not have everything figured out, but I can do something today. That single decision, that small, imperfect step, is what starts real change. You don't need to see the whole path. You just need to take the next step. And every time you do, you become stronger, more confident, and more at peace with yourself. You begin to see that you are not just reacting to life, you are creating it, moment by moment, choice by choice. That's the real heart of being proactive. It's not about doing more, it's about doing what matters. It's about progress, not perfection. It's about courage, not comfort. And it's about remembering that every big change begins the same way, with one small, brave step in the right direction. The power of small, intentional steps. Another important truth about being proactive is that it's deeply connected to your emotional well-being. When you focus on what you can control, take responsibility for your choices, and act with intention, you naturally begin to feel calmer and more confident. You reduce anxiety and self-doubt because you're no longer waiting for life to happen, you're guiding it. Proactivity builds trust in yourself. It gives you a quiet kind of strength, the kind that doesn't need to shout. You start to believe in your own abilities, and you gain peace of mind knowing that you are moving, step by step, in the right direction. Being proactive doesn't mean avoiding challenges or pretending that life is easy. It means facing those challenges with a sense of agency, knowing that, whatever happens, you have the power to respond wisely. Even the smallest proactive actions, making a call, finishing a task, or planning ahead, can help you feel less overwhelmed and more capable. Every time you act instead of wait, your confidence grows a little stronger. So here's something to think about. What's one small action you could take today that would make your life a little better tomorrow? It doesn't have to be big or dramatic. Maybe it's sending that email you've been putting off. Maybe it's practicing a skill for 10 minutes. Maybe it's planning your day before checking your phone. Or maybe it's simply taking a few quiet minutes to think about what really matters to you. The action itself doesn't matter as much as the intention behind it. What matters is that you choose to move forward, even just a little. Each small, intentional step adds up. Each small decision shapes the direction of your life. And over time, you'll look back and realize that those tiny, consistent steps have built something powerful, a life that reflects your choices, your priorities, and your values. As we close today's reflection, I want to leave you with one simple thought. Be mindful of the choices you make, even in small moments. Look for opportunities to act instead of wait, to plan instead of react, and to focus on what you can control rather than worrying about what you can't. Proactivity isn't something you do once. It's a daily practice, a way of living. It's about building habits, taking small, meaningful steps, and learning to trust yourself along the way. The more you do it, the more natural it becomes, until acting with purpose starts to feel effortless, just part of who you are. So as you go through your day or your week, pause for a moment and ask yourself, what's one thing I can do right now, however small, that moves me forward? Then take that step. Notice how it feels, the small spark of confidence, the quiet sense of control. Those are signs of growth. And remember, every small, intentional step adds up to meaningful change. Thank you for joining me today on Fluent English Journey. Keep practicing, keep reflecting, and keep taking small proactive steps each day. When you choose to live with intention, life becomes calmer, richer, and far more empowering. The journey begins and continues with one small, deliberate step. Proactivity is yours to practice, yours to shape, and yours to live.